Hello! In this session, we're going to explore some primal and animal movements, which is honestly one of my favorite styles of movement. First of all, because I think it's just super fun. Once you find a little bit of primal way of moving, you can connect with your body in such interesting ways. You can tap into a state of animalistic movements that is very, very different from the way that we move usually in the world. And I just find it very fascinating because you can tap into this interesting state and unlock these really cool patterns that are playful, that are explorative. And on top of it, you build quite a bit of strength throughout the arms, wrists, the core. So you're building organic strength. But I don't want you to really think about that, because the point of this session and what I'm going to show you is not to really build strength. That will come on top of it, which is a really amazing bonus. But the main thing I want you to get out of this is these new ways of moving and unlocking new patterns. That's going to bring some creativity, bring some playfulness, and bring some joy in your body in a primal way. So I hope I was able to sell it to you in some way, but let's start very basic in this video. We're going to start on our hands and knees, coming into this tabletop position. We're going to warm up our wrists a little bit, and at the same time, we will warm up a little bit. I'll prep you for what's to come. So we're going to come into this tabletop position. If you need to bring something soft under your knees, please do that. And to start with the wrists here, we're going to start to shift our weight from hand to hand. And as I do that, as I shift my weight to one side, I'm going to lift the other hand slightly off the ground and then bring it back again. So I'm shifting my weight down onto one hand and then the other hand. The image that I find helpful here is you think of a cat. You know how they find a blanket or a carpet and they start massaging it, or they knead it. So you can bring that in mind. Another thing you can think of is as if you're making pizza dough. You would really press through all parts of your hands, the heel of the hand, the different edges of the hand. So you're like giving love to the ground, and with different pressures. So I'm not just, I'm exaggerating, but I'm not just like slapping my hand from side to side. I'm really putting pressure through different parts of my palms and fingers. And as I do this, I'm also going to start to point the fingers in different directions. This is going to help us to warm up the wrist, different parts of the wrist. So I can go internally, I can go external towards the knees. Again, finding a quality of softness through these pressure points. You can experiment with placing one edge of the hand on the ground and then the rest. So it's a gradual hand placement on the ground. And the next step here is, instead of just having our hands in one spot, we're also going to start to move them on the ground. So my knees stay where they're at. I'm just moving my hands on the ground in different places. Again, the best image you can think of is just an animal, a cat, just moving their paws on the ground. It's very soft. It's intentional. It's not quick or rushed or anything like that. And as you're pushing into the ground, also push through the shoulders too. So it's the whole arm from the shoulders throughout the fingertips and the palms are working to press onto the ground. Nice. Let's come up for a second onto the knees, interlace the hands together, and start to move the wrist around a little bit. It will help to release a little bit of tension we were just building. And then don't rush it. You can move in big circles, and you can switch direction. And then go ahead and start to shake out the wrist, shake out the hands. Release more tension because things are gonna get a little bit spicier in a second. So we're gonna now come into a squatted position. Now it doesn't have to be the perfect deep squat with heels down. I mean, that's nice if you have that. You can also lift the heels up. Just be relatively comfortable here in the squatting position. And the next thing we're going to do is from this squat, I'm going to bring my hands forward into an all fours position. So just watch me for a second. From this squat, I'm going to bring my hands forward, bring my weight forward into this position of having my feet and hands on the ground. My knees are off the floor, just a couple of inches. They can hover or just lift up a little bit. And then I'm going to push myself back into a squat. Again, this position of coming forward, you can think a cat, you can think of a four-legged animal, a bear is also an interesting image. I'm bringing myself forward into this animal position. It's called all fours because all four limbs are on the ground, all four, the hands and the feet. And I'm going to push back. So do that a couple times. And the main thing I want you to think of is, because there's nuances here, I'm not just throwing my weight forward, I'm really shifting my weight forward onto the hand. So that could be one hand at a time, going forward, pushing back, one hand at a time. It could be both hands, but again, I'm not throwing too hard. I'm like really receiving the ground softly, bringing my weight forward, and then pushing back into a squat. Please do that a couple times on your own. And the next step is the same thing we were doing on the ground where we were moving our hands in different positions. We're going to do the same thing here. So watch me here for a second. I'm going to shift my weight forward like I showed you onto all fours. And then I'm going to start to move my hands a little bit on the ground. I don't have to go in all these different weird positions if I want to. If I don't need to do that, you can if you want to. But for the most part, just you can keep your hands nice and relaxed, but put them in different places on the ground. And then when I'm tired and I need a second, I'm going to push back into a squat. So a couple of things about that is, as you notice, I was crossing my hands, going one hand over the other or under. You can play with that. You can play with different distances of the hands. You can play with how far you are from your feet. The further away you go from the feet, it's going to be harder. The closer you are to your feet, it's going to be a little bit easier because you have more weight on your feet. So if I go forward here, it's going to be a little bit harder for my upper body. And then I can slowly bring myself back into squat. Or I can go to the side and then notice I can cross my hands either on top or under. Again, very animal vibe. I can come back to squat. And again, think of the softness of how intentional you place your hands. Ideally, you don't want to make any sound. You want to be very quiet, very soft with the hands. I can also come behind me for a second. This is also an interesting position to be in. To the side maybe, and then forward, and then maybe behind me again, and then back into a squat. So you can play with all of this. This is already quite a bit. So if you need to rest at this point, please do that. I'm going to take us a level further. Now as I go into my all four animal position, I can move my hands and I can also move my feet, because what I did just now was feet were staying in one place, right? But now I can also add some movement to the feet. There are a couple of technical things I can tell you about, but for the most part, just let that be intuitive, because I want this session to be playful and intuitive. So let me just show you what I mean. So when I come into this all four position again, we were just moving the hands. But now maybe I move my hands in a new position, and then I can also move my feet in a new position. And maybe I can come back into a squat again just to reset. But then I go again, I move my hands, and then I move my feet coming to a new position. I'll do one more time. I come forward, I move my feet again. I can come back into squat to reset, take a breath, and then go again. Here, move my feet, move my hands, move my feet, and come back. So in the beginning, you can take turns with the hands and feet. It's a little bit easier, and eventually you don't really have to do that. You can just move hands and feet in any order. So I can move one hand and one foot, the other hand, the other foot, or I can just move my feet for a few times and then move the hands again and then do them at the same time, and then I can come back into a squat. So play with different variations. Sometimes if I'm going just straight in one direction, it's nice to move opposite hand, opposite foot. So if I'm going just forward from here, it could be nice and efficient if I move right hand and then opposite foot, which is the left foot, so right hand, left foot, left hand, right foot, right hand, left foot, and I can go back the same way. This already is quite a bit of coordination. Or I can honestly move them same hand, same foot, same hand, same foot, same hand, same foot. It requires a different weight shifting. And there's no right or wrong. There are ones that are a bit more efficient, but I don't want you to really think about that stuff too much because that becomes a little technical and about coordination and all that. So just throw that away and really bring your attention to your body to see what your body wants to do. Find some points of curiosity and let your curiosity take you in different directions. Again, move your hands and feet in any directions you want, backwards, forwards, to the side, or really weird positions too can really work. And then back into a squat. As I showed you before, we can also go behind us, right? I can go behind me, move a little bit here, and then find an interesting transition to come back into this bear or cat position again. And then maybe finding another transition to come here. There's all of these possibilities. So what I would love for you to do is to take this information, let go of this video, pause it, stop it, play a song, a really cool tribal animal vibe song that you can play for yourself, and start to just move around, start to jam, start to let your curiosity take you in different directions. Don't think technique, don't think coordination or building strength too much. Move the way that makes you happy, and then just take a break, rest. The last thing I say is that if you are getting a bit comfortable with this stuff, or if you already have some experience and this is coming a little bit easier to you, you can also start to move your body, upper body, and the head quite a bit too. So instead of me just, being so focused on what's happening here, I can also start to move my head, maybe lifting one hand at a time and like looking up, looking around. So like freeing up the spine a little bit more could be really interesting, and this is where we get, quite a bit more curious and playful, and we can make it spicy. If this is way above what you want to try, just let it go. Always go back to the first step. You can always go back to the very first stuff that I showed you in the beginning. Play a song, play with this stuff, move around, jam, and have fun.